Hello, this is Dr. Jamie Turndorf here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the scientific proof of an afterlife. For decades, there has been scientific research published that uncovers evidence that human consciousness, or what some call the soul, lives on after bodily death. Max Planck, who received the 1918 Nobel Prize as the father of quantum physics, said in The Observer on the 25th of January in 1931 that his experiments indicated that human consciousness pre-existed the universe. And as he said, quote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing postulates consciousness." David Bohm, a protege of Einstein and one of the world's most respected quantum physicists, was himself a proponent of the holographic model, precisely because it explains various phenomena for which both traditional and quantum physics have no explanation. Stuart Hameroff and Deepak Chopra recently published an article entitled "The Quantum Soul, a Scientific Hypothesis," in which they say the end-of-life brain activity supports the notion of a quantum basis for consciousness, which could conceivably exist independent of biology in various scalar planes in space-time geometry. According to Michael Talbot, author of The Holographic Universe, some scientists are beginning to believe the universe itself is kind of a giant hologram, a splendidly detailed illusion. Talbot goes on to say that the holographic model explains all paranormal and mystical experiences, from telepathy, precognition, and mystical feelings of oneness with the universe, to psychokinesis, which is the ability of the mind to move physical objects without anyone touching them. It even explains death itself, which is nothing more than the shifting of a person's consciousness from one level of the hologram of reality to another. The brilliant Thomas Campbell has spent the past 30 years studying the properties, boundaries, and abilities of consciousness. And in his seminal work, My Big TOE, which is short for Theory of Everything, Campbell presents his consciousness theory of everything, including what he calls a virtual reality concept, which explains how multiple realities exist simultaneously. His larger consciousness system, which he calls the LCS system, which explains how multiple realities exist simultaneously. That also is consistent with the reincarnation. His larger consciousness system, the LCS, explains all paranormal or psi experiences, including the placebo effect, quantum entanglement, precognition, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, after-death communication, and even aspects of dreaming, particularly lucid dreaming. And there was a fascinating article at spiritsciencemetaphysics.com entitled "Scientists Claim That Quantum Theory Proves Consciousness Moves to Another Universe at Death." And it says that we carry space and time around with us like turtles with shells. And according to Dr. Robert Lanza, who was voted the third most important scientists alive by the New York Times, he says when the shell comes off, which is space and time, we still exist. Dr. Robert Lanza argues in his book Biocentrism how life and consciousness are the keys to understanding the nature of the universe, that the death of consciousness simply does not exist. Lanza explains that humans wrongly assume that the body generates consciousness and that consciousness dies with the body. But Lanza says that we receive consciousness in the same way that a cable box receives satellite signals. The signals do not end with bodily death, which means consciousness is not constrained by time, space, the body, or the brain. As Lanza says, consciousness is non-local in the same way that quantum objects are non-local. Afterlife researcher Roberta Grimes has gathered much of the evidence for the survival of consciousness in her accessible book, The Fun of Dying. She says evidence tells us that there are about 7 inhabited levels of after-death reality that are separated from us and from each other only by their differing energy levels, just as television channels exist at different vibratory rates. And she adds that the evidence overwhelmingly indicates that when we die, we simply tune our minds away from this material channel to one at a slightly higher rate of vibration. And there we pick up a whole new solid post-death reality. What she found is consistent with what I have always said about when you want to reconnect with a loved one, you have to raise your vibratory rate so that you are on the same channel that they're at. So if we're vibrating at a lower rate, like 4, and they're vibrating on 7, we just need to use my meditation for making contact to lift our vibratory rate so that we are on their same channel frequency. Grimes further argues that more than 95% of the universe that physicists call the dark matter or dark energy, because it doesn't interact with material light, looks like the greater reality that we enter at bodily death. And scientists have no better explanation for it. So perhaps mainstream scientists have discovered the afterlife after all in this dark matter. Grimes also states that the Human Genome Project decisively puts to bed the possibility that our brains generate our minds. It was revealed in 2014 that the human genome contains only 19,000 genes, which is 2,000 fewer than the genome of C. elegans, a nearly microscopic worm of fewer than 1,000 cells. And nearly all of our genes predate the emergence of primates. So Grimes says the implications of the fact that the human genome is so small have not been well publicized, but many researchers are stunned by it. So either much of what they thought about genetics is wrong, or the human brain does not generate the mind. Grimes also argues that the evidence is overwhelming that our minds are powerful parts of an energy-like consciousness matrix. And her research agrees with the work of the founding quantum physicists in demonstrating that human consciousness is primary and pre-existing. It easily survives the death of our bodies. And in conclusion, Dean Radin, the author of The Conscious Universe, says eloquently, I've also learned that those who loudly assert with great confidence that there isn't any scientifically valid evidence for psychic abilities does not know what they're talking about. So all this is meant to say, you are meant to reconnect with your loved ones who don't die. They just leave their bodies and are with us right here in the dark matter, what some call heaven or the light or the afterlife. And they're just waiting for you to reconnect with them. And that's the only way to heal your grief, is to reconnect and stay connected. So I'm offering a limited number of grief relief sessions at a discounted price to help you begin your reconnection and dialogue. And you can find my session at askdrlove.com/grief relief. See you there.